Okay, so let's dive in. This week, we're unpacking, well, the last 7 days or so, and it was quite a ride, wasn't it? Global stuff, some really surprising personal stories, pop culture moments, too.
Absolutely. And our mission here for you listening is really to sift through this pile of sources we've got,
Yeah.
pull out the important bits, the insights, give you that shortcut to being, well informed.
Right. Not just what happened, but maybe why it matters, trying to connect those dots.
Exactly. Connect the dots, maybe find a few surprising facts, and hopefully keep it reasonably entertaining along the way.
Okay, let's do it. So, unpacking Bass Week. First up, our source is called a low-energy military parade.
Father's Day weekend. And the music choice, Bulls on Parade.
Yeah, that stood out. And the sources had, like, different takes on what actually went wrong, right? Was it troops being deliberately off?
Or maybe just thrown together too fast. Hasty prep.
Or just, plain old admin incompetence. They even floated a name, Pete Hegseth, possibly linked somehow.
It's insightful, though, isn't it? How one event, just a parade, can get interpreted in so many ways. It really reflects those deeper splits we see.
It really does.
Objective reality kind of gets pushed aside for whatever fits the narrative.
Yeah.
Like one military take was, look, every soldier knows how to march in step, implying it had to be deliberate if they weren't.
Okay.
But then another view was, hold on, the U.S. military does real jobs. They don't just practice walking all day.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just lack of practice.
So the real point isn't even what happened, but how we see what happened based on our biases.
Precisely. That seems to be the core insight from the sources on that one.
Okay, moving from parades to protests. Civic engagement was definitely a theme. We looked at a first-hand account of the No Kings protests.
Right, down at the plaza in Casey Mill Creek Park.
Yeah, that was the main spot, but apparently it stretched out to places like McDougal and Clinton, too, which was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
And the feeling from the person there was just, we had to do something.
Yeah, that urgency comes through. And, the sources also touched on that whole George Soros paid protester conspiracy theory.
Ah, right.
Which, let's be clear, the source described with some very dismissive language, like crybaby loser mentality, I think was the phrase used.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're just reporting that viewpoint, not endorsing it.
Exactly, just relaying what was in the material.
Mm.
But the core point from the person at the protest was, no, people were there because they believed in it, not for cash.
Gotcha. And then it got really interesting, didn't it? This whole discussion about the 3% rule.
The idea that it only takes about 3% of the population protesting to make real political change happen.
And they actually did the math, apparently. Said it was close, like 2.75%.
Yeah, that was mentioned. And then there was this quite strategic discussion about who should be visible at the protest.
Right, that was uncomfortable. The idea that maybe white participants were chosen strategically to avoid certain public reactions.
Yeah, the source mentioned avoiding bad memories of Black Lives Matter or raucous immigrant stuff, and this idea that the change has to come from you guys. It definitely raises questions about protest dynamics and optics.
Definitely does. Okay, switching gears completely. A really different personal story from the sources.
Oh, yeah.
This person who suddenly stopped having body odor.
What? Really?
Yeah, which led them down this rabbit hole about the ACC11 gene. Apparently, it's common in Koreans, but also exists in like 1% of other folks.
Wow.
And it can just switch on later in life. No more BO.
That's wild. So, scientifically fascinating, but I guess personally a bit weird. Why did it change?
Exactly. The source mentioned that concern, is there a downside? Even though research apparently shows no known negative health stuff.
Still, you'd wonder. It just shows how much we don't know about our own bodies, doesn't it?
Totally. And speaking as someone who sweats, well, profusely, maybe there's hope for the rest of us someday.
Huh. Maybe science will find that switch for everyone.
One can dream. Okay, let's shift again. Let's talk about some personal journeys, community stuff, local finds that came up this week.
Okay.
We heard about someone moving back into the KCTK studio.
Yeah.
Joking about freeloading.
Right. And starting work at NetSmart. Healthcare solutions.
Yeah, client experience team. Mentioned surveys, client events. Sounded like a really positive experience, actually. Talked about a great team, good manager.
That makes such a difference, doesn't it, when you're starting something new? That support system.
Definitely. And this whole theme raises that question, how do we adjust our lives, our spaces when new things come in, new relationships, new responsibilities?
And speaking of new additions, there was Olive, right, the puppy.
Oh, yeah. The 8-month-old golden retriever, described as a studio destroyer.
but also a good listener, apparently, amidst the destruction era.
Sounds about right for a puppy. So yeah, adapting the space, the routine.
Yeah.
It's a big shift.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Human relationships, furry ones, they reshape things.
And then there was that funny anecdote about being put on the spot at a neighbor's 80th birthday party.
Oh, it happened.
Got asked to lead a prayer completely out of the blue. Described it as performative, but hey, stepped up. Shows adaptability, I guess.
You never know, Brad.
Exactly. Plus, lots of social stuff mentioned. Cycling classes, drinks, friends, live music. Boulevardia got a shout out. Games.
Sounds like a busy, connected life.
Yeah, and navigating a new relationship, too. Mentioned a first big travel planned Lake of the Ozarks for the 4th.
Oh, okay. Milestones.
And we also heard about other community things like grabbing chili at Dixon's with high school friends. Noticed almost everyone was retired already.
Wow, that's a moment.
And going to a Croatian soccer game at St. John's Catholic Church. Complete with Croatian sausage.
Nice. It all comes back to that fellowship, doesn't it? Finding those connections.
Totally. Okay, local flavor spotlight. This sounds good.
Ooh, where?
A new Jamaican place opened up near the comedy club. Southside Grill.
Oh, nice. What's good?
Apparently everything. Jerk chicken, lamb chops, oxtails, blackened fish, jerk wings, and the source specifically raved about the red beans and rice.
Okay. Making me hungry now.
Seriously. Said they'd already been like 3 or 4 times, and it only opened a couple of weeks ago.
That's a strong endorsement. Got to check that out.
Definitely on the list. Okay, let's switch to pop culture. Screens, sounds, superheroes. What pulse this week?
All right.
First, music. Heard about this band, the Greystones?
Don't think I know them.
They're kids, like 11-year-olds. But apparently phenomenal, doing 80s and early 90s covers. Found them on TikTok and Instagram, described as a serious school of rock.
Wow, 11. That's impressive. I'll have to look them up.
Yeah, me too. Then major events. FanFest USA in New York.
Right, covered by a family member with press access. Sounds like quite the scene.
Totally. Some specific encounters mentioned. John Cena apparently jumped over a table.
No way.
Yeah. Got a picture with Kevin Durant. And then the big one. Tom Brady ripping an Eli Manning jersey in half on stage.
Ooh. Seriously?
Yep. And left a piece behind as a souvenir for the person covering it.
That's memorable.
Yeah.
And kind of intense.
Right. Also a mention of knowing figures like Dusky. Some kind of generational thing.
Okay. Moving to streaming. What were the picks?
2 shows got mentioned. Straw on Netflix. Tyler Perry, Taraji P. Henson called it a pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And also Duster on Max.
Got it. Now, movies. Summer movie season's heating up.
Yeah, lots happening. Starting with live action adaptations, the new How to Train Your Dragon.
Ah, okay. How was it?
Apparently pretty faithful to the cartoon. The dragons were very dog-like, which sounds cute.
Mm-hmm.
Humorous note about Hiccup having a Justin Bieber haircut and wearing a Nike hoodie.
Huh. Modernizing it.
I guess so.
Oh.
And the rating was unique. 8 dragon fangs out of 10.
Love it. Creative rating. You know, it really makes you think about what makes these live action versions work, right?
Yeah, what is it?
It's got to be more than just recreating the look.
Yeah.
It's translating that core story, the feeling of the characters, that balance between the familiar and something new.
Good point. Then Mission Impossible. Big scale, obviously.
As expected. What stunts stood out?
Deep sea dives, biplane jumps.
Yeah.
The usual physics-defying stuff. And a really long gym fight scene that was apparently memorable.
Huh.
Definitely recommended as a big-time movie for the theater. The source felt like they don't make them like this anymore.
Yeah, that big screen experience.
Also, excitement for the Jaws 50th re-release. Hoping for the original version, not the later digitized one.
Oh, fingers crossed for the original cut. That would be great.
And The Life of Chuck getting good buzz, but nobody seems to know what it's actually about, which is intriguing in itself.
The mystery approach sometimes works.
Now, like superheroes, Marvel's trying Fantastic Four again.
Third time's the charm. Maybe.
Hope so. Source mentioned hoping they get it right this time, but also admitted to some personal Marvel fatigue.
I think a lot of people feel that. It raises that question, how do you keep classic characters fresh? Especially when there's just so much content.
Exactly. Which brings us to the new Superman movie, James Gunn directing.
Right. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. New Superman. Apparently has 2 dimples.
Okay, noted. And Crypto, the superdog, is in it.
Yep.
Lex Luthor as president. And other DC heroes showing up: Green Lantern, someone called Hot Girl, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho.
Packing it in. But the source seemed excited about the tone, more positive than recent darker takes.
Yeah, that was the vibe. Positive, but still the core conflict for Superman. Sounds promising.
But there was some skepticism too, right, about Gunn's style.
Mm-hmm. The source wondered if his campy style, which worked great for Guardians, Peacemaker will fit Superman, or potentially Batman down the line.
That's a fair question.
It's that tension, isn't it? Director's vision versus the established character essence. Always G.
Definitely. Okay, quick hits on two others. Friendship, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd.
Oh, interesting pairing.
Described as dark, cringy, playing it straight for laughs.
Sounds like their kind of humor.
And a rom-com, Materialists,
Hmm.
love triangle.
Yeah.
Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal, Chris Evans.
Stacked cast. Yeah, but sounds like it hits the classic trope. Love wins over money.
Shocking.
All right, let's pull these threads together now. Global stuff. Politics, economy, perceptions.
Okay.
Started with the economy. The Fed meeting on Wednesday.
Right, holding interest rates steady.
And the key detail from the sources was why.
Exactly. It wasn't arbitrary. Inflation ticked up, and the source pinpointed tariffs, those taxes on imports, as a big reason. Plus, just the uncertainty about future tariffs.
So that makes things unpredictable for businesses, for consumers.
Right, which is why Chairman Powell held rates. Cautious move. But, the source contracted this with some criticisms that seem to just ignore that context.
Yeah, it highlights how easily complex economics gets, well, oversimplified or spun.
Definitely.
Then we had some quick news quiz facts from the source material.
Let's see if I remember. G7 summit was in Canada.
Yeah. Republican senator making offensive jokes. Mike Lee.
Got it. Mike Lindell lost that defamation case against Eric Coomer.
Correct. Huma Abedin married Alex Soros.
Right. And Michael Madigan convicted of bribery.
You got them all. Okay, then this segment in the source called Promises Made, Promises Kept.
Ah, yes. Started with that deeply ironic claim about preventing World War II.
Immediately followed by news of U.S. military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, June 21st.
And the context here is crucial, isn't it? Connecting the dots back. The source emphasized the withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal back in May 2018.
Right, under the previous administration.
And how that directly led to Iran stepping up enrichment again.
Yeah.
It really shows how past decisions ripple forward, creating the conflicts we see now.
Yeah, that cause and effect was laid out clearly. And then there was that provocative tweet mention.
Linking the political dynamics, Obama's deal versus Trump's actions, framed partly through a lens of racism in the source material as a precursor to World War II.
Again, just relaying the perspective from the source material there, not our own take.
Absolutely. It's important, we're presenting the range of views covered. The source also made strong claims about Benjamin Netanyahu's alleged influence.
Described him as a criminal using Trump for political gain, especially regarding Israel and Hamas.
That was the assertion in the material, suggesting a mix of international and domestic politics driving things.
And the sources drew comparison to the Iraq War lead-up.
Yeah, contrasting how George W. Bush, even with flawed intel, sought international and congressional backing.
Versus what the source described as more unilateral and incompetent actions this time around.
It's a stark comparison they drew. And it brought up another interesting point about political perception.
How allegiances shift.
Exactly. How a political group, the MAGA home movement, according to the source, might oppose Mideast interventions generally.
But then support them if initiated by their leader, even if the facts or situations are similar to ones they previously opposed.
It really makes you question how much narratives and loyalty shape foreign policy views, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the whole segment wrapped up with this quite stark observation from the source.
That the U.S. is no longer the leader of the country of the world.
Yeah. Definitely leaves you with something to chew on regarding America's place on the global stage.
For sure.
And, wow, that brings us pretty much to the end of this deep dive. We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. From, global politics, economics, down to, surprise gene discoveries and local restaurant finds.
And pop culture, personal stories. It's all interconnected, isn't it?
That's the goal, right? To tailor this for you, give you those insights, maybe those aha moments, help connect those seemingly random pieces into something hopefully more coherent.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. We've heard so many perspectives today, some conflicting information even. How do we, just as individuals trying to make sense of it all, how do we cultivate that healthy skepticism, that critical lens?
Yeah, how do we make sure we're not just informed with facts, but actually understanding the massive complexity of the world around us?
It's something to think about.